Curtis Ellis, Senior Advisor for America First Policies. Curtis, great to have you, man.
It's great to be here. You're doing a terrific job there, covering the storm and keeping your listeners safe and informed.
Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate it. That's why we came back to Chesapeake, and we want to stay on the air. We know we've got a lot of people that depend on us, and with the power lines going down, we have a generator in. Mike is staying up the street here, and we're going to keep everybody informed because, look, this thing could be just rain and we're fine, or it could hit us dead on, and then all hell breaks loose. So
I know you gotta watch that Hurricane Florence Henning really closely.
I know, Curtis. I'm so glad you're on today. Thanks, Curtis Ellis, Senior Advisor for America First Policies. I'm going to skip all the grandiose intros I do.
Yeah, skip all the grandiose intros.
Skip all that Slumlord George calling from the peninsula. Took your time on that.
That's okay.
So I read the preface. Of the book Fear by Bob Woodward, and I couldn't wait to get you on today. So the entire book, all of this stuff on Trump, is based on basically two people. Rob Porter from the RNC, who got fired, Bush Rubio guy, Rob the Rat, and Gary, the Goldman Sachs weasel, that was a Democrat that voted for Clinton. The entire book is based on hours and hours of tapes of Rob the Rat and Gary the Weasel. And Curtis, guess what the whole thing is about?
Free trade.
Bingo.
Free
Elaborate.
trade uber alles, which, surprise, surprise, Gary the globalist weasel Cohn believes in. That's his religion, free trade. And Rob Porter, who we are informed by Bob Woodward, the one-man swamp, he informs us that Rob Porter went to Harvard, and he's ramrod straight posture. And so this little young whippersnapper, alleged wife-beater, but we'll leave that aside because it hasn't been proven. It's simply an allegation, but that's the reason he's not in the White House anymore. And for whatever reason, I'm glad he's not there. Decides that free trade is wonderful, and for reasons he can't even explain, but he tries to explain them in Woodward's Pulp Fiction. And, yeah, that's what it's all about, free trade. Free trade, and, in this first little episode, the prologue, you have Gary Cohn sneaking into the Oval Office and taking a letter off the Resolute desk, lest the president sign it and spark irreparable damage to our national security, leave our country open to nuclear attack. So we must ask, what was this letter, this purloined letter, this, as Woodward says, quote, potential trigger to a national security catastrophe?
Oh, my God, what is it?
Oh, my God, what was it? He reproduces the letter so we can actually see it. It's addressed to the Minister of Trade of South Korea, saying, pursuant to Article 4.1 of the U.S.-South Korea Free Trade Agreement, I'd like to inform you that we wish to withdraw, and in 180 days. In the meantime, we are open to renew the treaty. That's it.
That's trade treaty.
The whole thing.
The trade treaty, because
the free trade treaty, which was signed in 2011. I guess we were open to nuclear attack before 2011, since we didn't have this free trade treaty with South Korea.
Unbelievable. And this sparked because the president looked at the treaty and he said, why do we have a $20 billion trade deficit? I'm sorry, an 18, let me get the numbers right. Why do we have an $18 billion trade deficit annually with South Korea? What kind of a trade deal is this?
Correct you, Kia Breath. Our trade deficit with South Korea went from $13 billion to $27 billion after we signed this treaty. In the last year, it came down a little, but no. This trade treaty with South Korea was a disaster. He talked about it on the campaign trail. He promised to renegotiate it, and he is fulfilling a campaign promise by doing it. And by the way, since then, he has renegotiated it, and last I checked, the junkies in Tompkins Square Park block from me are not radioactive from some nuclear fallout that struck us because of this renegotiation of the trade treaty. So you got to take everything else that Bob Woodward says and throw it in the dumpster because it's a bunch of garbage, right? So Bob Woodward, it took Bob Woodward 7 sentences to turn this campaign promise into a nuclear holocaust. He went down the usual path that the State Department has been going down for 80 years now, which is we are going to take our industries and give them away to other countries so we can get basing rights and build alliances and blah, 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 blah. The American people will suffer because we're going to turn trade into foreign aid. And we're going to buy our allies, buy votes in the United Nations, buy military forward-listening intelligence-gathering stations by giving away Americans' jobs. And this is how we're going to build up a worldwide string of military bases and be the Roman Empire of the 20th century. That's what the State Department's been doing. Former Senator Fritz Hollings of South Carolina complained about this back in the 1960s. Mm-hmm. Said, you're destroying the textile industry in South Carolina. You've given it to Japan. We gave Korea steel in the 1970s. We gave Mexico the automotive industry with NAFTA. And we gave everything else to China in 2000 because we thought they'd become our ally once we let everybody, all of American industry, heave-ho, take it out of America and invest it in China. Then China was going to become rich, prosperous, and an American ally. Well, it didn't quite work out like that. Never did. Not with any of these. But that's what the State Department preaches. That's what the swamp creatures in Washington believe. Democrats and Republicans, both of them. Gary Cohn, Democrat. Rob Porter, Republican. George H.W. Bush, New World Order man, Republican. They've all believed this for years. Bob Woodward, the one-man swamp, the voice of the establishment, that's what he believes, uncritically. He lays it out in the book like this is fact. Like this was handed down on Mount Sinai to the children of America to believe. And that's what his whole book is about. It's everywhere. If you get the book and you look in the index for trade, it's everywhere. I heard him on the BBC last night, Woodward saying, and James Mattis had to tell the president that we're here to prevent World War III. What's he talking about? The Korea Free Trade Agreement.
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
You just got to follow the money. And, we said this last week, and now this book, Fear, the entire book, 80% of it is based on Gary, the globalist weasel Cohn, and Rob, the RNC rat. That's what the whole thing is based on, hours and hours of testimony. And then let me tell you something else. Both of these gutless yellow belly weasels put a statement on it, say, well, we were taken out of text. Woodward says, I don't think so. I've got like hours and hours and hours and hours of you on a tape recorder saying all this, right? Yeah. So they said it because, look, they went in there and they didn't care what the American people voted for. They didn't care about American workers. Their agenda is protect the swamp, protect the elites. Workers are a commodity. Trade is good. Open borders, open trade. Make more money for your brethren in Goldman Sachs and Wall Street. That's what this whole thing is about. And it was there in the book.
All the coverage of this book, they mentioned in passing, what is this all about? It's all predicated on the fact that if we don't have free trade, the whole world falls apart. America will be left defenseless. America will be a smoking radioactive ruin because we'll be unable to defend ourselves from our foes. And that quote that they teased, the little naughty bit that they put out there where Rex Tillerson says, Secretary of State at the time, says, President Trump is an effing moron, right? Where did that come from? You look on page 218 of the book, and he tells this long story where Gary Cohn is going to have a meeting in the Pentagon where he and Mattis and Tillerson, they're all going to educate the president about how wonderful free trade is and how we need this. And it goes on and on for pages, and they they're going to teach the president how upsetting the status quo on trade threatened, quote, the precarious stability in the world, and that this could spill over to the military and intelligence community. And they've got charts and graphs and photographs with circles and arrows on the back, and Gary Cohn gives them this big speech. We're doing great with this Korea Free Trade Agreement. Americans are getting $200 television sets, and all the money they're saving on buying amazing TV sets, they're using it to buy other American products and services, going to the nail salon and getting manis and petties. It's just wonderful, wonderful. Trump's having none of it. He says, this is BS. I'm not taking it. He gets up, he walks out, and at that point in the story, Rex Tillerson says he's an effing moron. Now, look, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That's exactly what the State Department and the globalists like Gary Cohn have been doing. They've been telling us more bad trade deals is going to lead to more prosperity, more stability, we're all going to be richer. Never comes. They are the effing morons. And thanks to Bob Woodward, we now know it.
So Bob Woodward, you can say, did us a favor in really exposing the swamp and their resistance to protecting the American worker at the expense of their Wall Street profits, right?
Yeah, exactly. Look, the book Fear, it's fear and loathing in the swamp. The fear that he talks about is the fear that Donald Trump has struck into the hearts of the swamp creatures. They are absolutely petrified of this guy doing what he said he would do on the campaign trail, and he started to do it. And that's why they're petrified. That's why they're sneaking into the old papers off the desk. They're doing these elaborate slow walking and running around. That's all detailed in the book, how Rob Porter purposely would slow walk any movement on trade, anything on steel tariffs, aluminum tariffs, China, South Korea, NAFTA. Rob Porter tried to kill it all. And luckily, thank God, Peter Navarro prevailed over all of it. Navarro and Wilbur Ross and the A-team on trade, Bob Lighthizer, they prevailed. And once you saw Cohn and Porter out, you started to see things really happen, as President Trump promised. As candidate Trump promised, and President Trump started to deliver.
Can I ask you something?
Because he didn't have these weasels and these rats sabotaging him
on a daily basis.
On an hourly basis.
Rob Porter put in there by Reince Priebus, just an RNC establishment globalist guy, gets in there, young fella. And so, like, who elected Rob Porter? Who elected Gary Cohn? I mean, who elected these people? No one.
That's right. These people have no sense of duty.
None.
Sense of
Zero.
Look, President Trump was elected. I was not elected. I may disagree with his policies, but I am here to help him institute his policies. No, it's I know better. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it.
And
it's incredible, and there's none of that in any of the coverage. You hear that on Fox News, you hear that as a throwaway line here and there, but I have not heard anywhere anybody taking apart the premise of Bob Woodward's arguments, which is it's all predicated on this theory that the State Department has been peddling for 7 decades, that trade will make America stronger because it's how we get our military alliances.
Open trade and open borders is what this book and this fight has been about, because it directly affects profits for Goldman Sachs exploiters, Lower Manhattan, Wall Street barons, and hedge fund managers. And
exactly.
And you said it, Curtis, at the direct expense of the American worker, and it's been going on for 50 years. And finally, you have somebody in there that recognizes it, that wants to stop it, and there are so many billions and billions of dollars going into people's pockets at stake that these weasels get in there and try to change the whole thing and say, well, you know what? He doesn't really know what's going on anyway. I got a news flash for them. He did. He got him out, and now the policies are working. But you're right. The entire premise of the book is to protect the swamp's open free trade and open borders philosophy. That's what this whole thing's about.
Yeah.
Money.
That's what they're afraid of. That's the fear. The fear in the title is the fear that their gravy train is going to be derailed by President Donald J. Trump.
Bingo, Curtis. That is exactly it. That is the fear. And we're out of time, and we're going to end with that again. Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor, American First Policy, says the real fear in the book is the fear that the swamp's gravy train is going to get derailed by Donald J. Trump. That's the fear.